Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming this morning. Today, we're going to hear a talk from Sara Lillie Anderson, who serves as the Senior Manager of Career Pathways at American Forest. Via the Tree Equity Career Pathways Initiative, Sara facilitates capacity building activities for pre-employment programs that build and retain a diverse, qualified, and representative workforce. Previously, she ran Lily Leaf Solutions, a firm that equipped community stakeholders to address equity, access, inclusion, and justice in their work. Sara has a master's degree in public administration from Bowie State University, and I'm really excited to hear from her and what she has to say about her program. So I will turn it over to you, Sara. Not actually, how do I do that?
I think I'll need to given some permissions to screen share. But in the meantime, thank you all for the enthusiasm and for joining the call and for getting up super early to come on. Thank you. It's really exciting to see you all and hear you all. I am honestly the OG cheerleader for you all. Okay, that's my job. My job is to make your jobs all easier. So thank you for the work that you all do all the time. You all are my heroes, and it's a privilege and an honor to be in service to you. And so let me go ahead and share my screen, and we will go ahead and get started. All right, hopefully everyone can see it. We're good, we're in good shape? Okay, fantastic. So this is quite a meaty presentation. So I wanna prep you all by, just take a deep breath. Okay, we're gonna launch into some topics. We're going to have some breaks for some exercises and some dialogue. So get your fingers ready to hit the chat or to potentially unmute yourselves and participate via audio if you'd like, whichever you prefer. But I would like this to be a dialogue and back and forth. It was really great hearing everybody's kind of titles and what you're working on, where you are geographically. Very, very helpful so that I can kind of better tailor the conversation to meet your needs. So as was mentioned, I run the Career Pathways Initiative at American Forests. American Forests is the oldest national conservation nonprofit. Some of you have heard me kind of give iterations of this talk, so I'll probably be repeating some things, but you know, this is the cause, you know, this is the mission, so so bear with me if you've heard this before. But American Forest was founded in 1875, so soon we'll actually be celebrating our 150th, which is really exciting. And so the picture on the left is of First Lady Florence Harding, who was an active advocate for trees during her husband's administration. The picture on the right is City Green. I don't know if anybody was around when City Green or remembers City Green, but City Green was the iTree precursor, which American Forest created. And then of course evolved into iTree and a suite of other tools now that are available to manage urban forests. And that one in the middle there is kind of the quintessential logo for urban and community forestry that was created to brand the 50 plus, including territories, urban forest councils that exist because of the 1990 USDA Farm Bill that American Forest helped to write and push through. And so you know, we have great urban forests because of the work that you all do, but also because there's been a legacy of at American Forests and with partners building up public capacity and improved national policies and awareness around stewarding our urban forests. And so we wrote the book as well on shading our cities. It's a great read, actually, if you haven't read it before. My copy is like on my desk over here. Sometimes I reference it, but it's helpful. I think we're maybe gonna write a new one at some point in time because it's from 1984, so a lot of language to update and whatnot, but a lot of things still hold true in that book. One of the things that maybe we didn't speak about explicitly within that book, but that we know is true today, is the current state of our canopy cover is directly linked to planning and development patterns and laws and zoning practices that have been in effect for, in most of our American cities for about the past 100 years. And so in most cities, we have this trend where lower canopy cover is correlated to lower income areas, right? Areas that have been redlined in the past, areas that have been home to populations of communities that have been displaced and systemically under-resourced, right, and underserved. And so thanks to some of Dexter's fantastic research, thank you, Dexter, and all of the work and cooperation of you all on the line, we have the data to be able to illustrate this story and correlate, okay, higher tree canopy cover areas are places that have pretty much received most of the benefits that trees provide and have received, maybe a disproportionate amount of planting and care and other kind of stewardship supports via their proximity to privilege. And so we're working to, we're not starting from an even playing field right now to try to make sure that everyone has the benefits that trees provide. We're starting off unevenly, and so we need to actually reach equity first, and then we can go from there. So that's our prime imperative at American Forest right now, is to actually help to build integrated systems that yield tree equity. So whether that is from a policy standpoint, whether that is from a workforce development standpoint, which I'll be diving into more so in this talk, whether it's equipping stakeholders with some new tools, right? The future, the new city greens, if you will, the new iTree types of tools that can help decision makers kind of predict what the impact of certain policies might be, or the impact of certain new practices might be. American Forest is really dedicated to achieving this vision of tree equity. All right, so for the workforce development portion of this work, we have a really amazing opportunity. Some of you actually work on this day in, day out now in our field, which is we have this huge shortage of qualified workers in the field, and we have a huge backlog of maintenance, urban forest maintenance that needs to get done. And we have all these planting spaces that we need to plant up to help achieve tree equity. And so we are at a really perfect point. Honestly, some of us may think it's a little late, but we're at a perfect point right now, especially given the pandemic effects, to mobilize our whole field to attract and retain new folks into the field, specifically folks who have faced barriers to employment historically, folks who maybe don't have formal education or maybe haven't finished high school yet. We have amazing programs in our field. Kate leads one of them in Providence to usher in a new generation, a new urban forestry workforce. So I want to pause here and just for a little bit of back and forth looks like folks are hoping to join us, which is exciting. So I want to pause here to ask you all to just think about, and if you don't have immediate answers, it's fine. How can we prepare our industry to attract and retain those who aren't employed with us today? We know that there are certain limitations around crew culture that exist. There's pretty sexist practices. There's racist practices that exist, exclusionary practices. There's some actual barriers that exist where, whether it be drug testing or driver's license requirements or other kinds of things that are preventing us from being able to attract and retain folks who aren't currently employed with us. So I just want to pause there and see if anybody has ideas on how we can we can, as urban forestry practitioners, be more open to attracting more folks and retaining folks who aren't with us today.
One thing that we've talked about at Tree Pittsburgh is how we're distributing job openings, and to whom, and how those are accessible. If it's just by internet, then that's not accessible to those who don't have regular internet access. And also for the job descriptions, providing, often an application will say something like bachelor's degree preferred or something like that, but providing alternatives as well. So in lieu of a bachelor's degree, if you have this experience or are willing to put in the time to earn that experience or something like that. So providing alternative routes to enter the field that's not just certain educational barriers or things like that.
Thanks, Kinsey, that's great. Yeah, we have David in the chat talking about providing social capital opportunities and networking, right? Getting that face-to-face or hands-on, when possible, when safe, experiences with folks who are already in the field. Fantastic. Other, I guess,
yeah. So to kind of like build on what Kinsey was saying, one of the barriers that Davey has tried to eliminate is that job posting on the internet kind of thing. We still do it, obviously, because it's a big attractant, but at the same time, we do have the ability to actually kind of get someone's application into our system in the field. So if we've got a tree crew out there and someone approaches and says that they're interested in working with DV, we can actually get them into the system on our phones, which I think is really helpful, but only if that person is brave enough to go and talk to someone and say that they're interested in it. So, Sarah, you and I have talked about this before, and I think one of the, and it sounds like David is also thinking the same way that I am on this, is like getting them early, kind of like exposing children or the high school age to this as a field before they even leave high school, so that they're already thinking about it, providing opportunities for them to engage even before they leave school, so that it's shown as just another career path, just like becoming a fireman or a doctor or a teacher.
Definitely. Thanks, Danielle. Yeah, so if you have other thoughts, please continue to populate the chat with them. We're going to have a few more stopping points of exercises throughout the presentation. And so, yeah, keep the feedback coming. Yeah, these are the things that I think a lot of us think about. Some have actually executed, but aren't really standardized, right, throughout our whole field, and aren't quite uniform yet, so that youth know, oh, if I want to go into urban forestry, these are the kinds of experiences I can be expecting. And so that's one of the things that we're working on at American Forest is working to make sure that folks are going to be able to know what to expect, right? And have a better understanding of what they might be getting into, because I think it's still kind of a nebulous field to a lot of folks. They're like, what even is it? Nobody knows what it is. You know what it is. It's the best field ever, but we're biased. Okay.
Sarah, I just wanted to quickly interrupt and say I came across this study and I'd never seen it before that was explicit to this issue, and I'm going to share the link here. But it was a study about what students think about careers in urban forestry, and I don't know if you've seen this, and I hadn't seen it. I've been in this for like a couple of years. So I'm going to drop the link in there.
Yeah, I think maybe that was part of Susan Day's work to lead Urban Forestry 2020, which is a phenomenal project.
Okay. Well, whoever did it, thank you.
She's out here, so she's out here. Yeah. All right. So returning back to the situation we have at hand, which is our own demand, right? The actual demand in our field for qualified professionals. It's slated through 2028 to grow 10%, and we have the annual projected job openings are over 8,000 of them. But the field itself is going to grow by about 6,000 people, a little over 5,000 people, between 2018 and 2028. And so, you know, a lot of folks who are in the entry level tree trimmer jobs, and I'm going to mostly focus on those particular positions for this presentation, not the ones that require a college degree or require, you know, many, many years of experience. But a lot of folks who fill those positions are seasonal workers, are immigrants, are folks who move from temporary to employment to other kinds of temporary employment. And so that situation has been exacerbated by the pandemic, right? Immigration basically is a no-go right now. Like that doesn't exist right now because people are not moving in and out of countries. And so we had even more demand, which is just like, how did that even happen? You know, everything stopped, and basically within the first month of the pandemic, tree trimmers and pruners were deemed as essential workers throughout the whole country. And so that work is still going on. That work still needs to be done. I've heard lots of folks in the private sector say that they're catching up on their huge backlogs of contracts that they've been on the hook for. And so lots of opportunity to be had, competitive wages to be earned here. And so the case really writes itself. And then finally, for the kind of data wrap up, we ran a survey last winter, end of the year 2019, early 2020, and we got so many responses from folks all over the country who told us, you know, for their entry-level type jobs or for their urban forestry jobs that are mostly field-based, these were the top positions that were in demand: climber, foreman, and ground worker. And almost everybody who responded, like high percentage rates of respondents, said that they'd like to see more formal partnerships with entities that have access to those populations, like you were talking about, Danielle and David, like to the populations who are young, so that then they're impressionable, and we can get them early, pick them off early, and make sure that the pathway into the field is pretty smooth, that folks are getting trained. These young people and whomever else would like to join us in the field are getting trained by experienced instructors and are getting that hands-on experience with tools and machinery. But the most alarming stat, I think, out of the whole survey was that almost every respondent didn't know of a career pathway program that could help them fill the shortage and fill this gap of these in-demand positions. And so they maybe had known about programs that were local that were good, but weren't going to be able to be equipped to actually fill the shortage, or they weren't aware of any programs locally that could get the job done at all. And so that's where we focused our work at American Forest. It's been at this nexus, at this space of building career pathways programs to get folks industry recognized credentials that could help them move right into the field. And so those kinds of programs could look like tree care corps, tree care crews, general job training programs, corps, apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. And so ideally, you know, folks could graduate out of these programs as a Tree Care Industry Association certified apprentice. They could graduate with chainsaw safety certification. They could graduate with their OSHA hours, OSHA 10 or OSHA 30, et cetera, right? Their CPR, first aid, things like this, which are valuable to employers, because we know that even though it's really good to create, you know, networking opportunities and job shadow opportunities and things like that, that kind of all sums up to me in like exposure, and nobody puts like exposure on their resume. People put their credentials, people put their experience. And so we need to make sure that the experiences folks are getting in these programs fit those criteria to make them competitive. And so we did a whole analysis over 2018 and through 2019 of existing career pathways programs in our field. And we found that there were missing some key elements to make sure that folks have a smooth transition onto the career pathway. Wraparound services or support services like transit support, childcare, housing stipends, sometimes healthcare is a really good service as well. These types of support services that eliminate outside distraction and help folks show up to work or show up to their learning program, their job training program, full, rested, and prepared and equipped for the day, are really, really critical. And oftentimes there aren't services available to take people from, enthusiastic Saturday morning tree care volunteer or tree planting volunteer to being able to be in a part-time or temporary paid stewardship position, because they have all these other outstanding needs in their lives that have to be handled. So we found that that was a gap. And then we also found that even though the Tree Care Industry Association has a formal apprenticeship program that is approved by the Department of Labor, there is no formal national pre-apprenticeship standard for which many of these programs would fit in really nicely. And so the tree care programs and job training or seasonal training programs. And so we embarked to create just that. So we created, as a first step, and this is a lot of text, we'll get the slides after, but we created basically a cheat sheet on how to create more capacity within these pre-employment programs to align your program with Department of Labor standards so that you can seek out, if you don't have it already, pre-apprenticeship status. That status is very important because it allows grant access to Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act funds, which can sustain your programming. And Department of Labor funds are not going anywhere. Apprenticeship is extremely stable and well respected. There's tons and tons of studies on apprenticeship. It's kind of one of the I think the return on investment is for every $1 invested in apprenticeship, you get $27 back as back to society. It's huge, huge, huge returns. And we need to unify as a field to in my opinion, to come around apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship as our solution, as a kind of a stopgap measure, at least, to continue
Sarah?
to advance the field.
Could I ask you a question?
Sure.
For these pre-apprenticeship programs, is that something that could be done with a wider sort of group, not specific to tree care, or is that something that needs to be very specific to the thing that you're pre-apprenticing for? I'm just wondering if you could just elaborate on what that really looks like for somebody.
Sure. So I'll just go back a couple slides. So pre-apprenticeship, the couple designations down there. So a core program where folks are doing either trail maintenance and repair or other kinds of green infrastructure, maintenance activities. That is fine. Pre-apprenticeship is a big funnel. It's almost like community college and specializing with your 4-year degree. So it's very much akin to that. So often pre-apprenticeships, for example, in construction might be about, here's this house building pre-apprenticeship program, and folks learn all the ins and outs of building a house. And then they say, okay, well, this is great, but I'm actually going to go and be a carpenter's apprentice. And then they specialize within, carpentry. So we can absolutely join forces with and supply workers to the landscaping field, supply workers to horticulture, gardening, whatever adjacent, fields, lawn care, sports turf management, etc., from pre-apprenticeship programs. If that's helpful. All right. So how do we do this? Well, we wrote up a Career Pathways Action Guide that's many steps on how to get this done. And this is kind of the first step, which is basically why create your career pathway, figure out your why. If you you haven't already for your program. Define what success is going to look like. Is success going to look like a bunch of folks joining at the ground worker level and graduating into those paid jobs? Is success going to look like having a bunch of folks who are now credentialed as, you know, chainsaw safety specialist folks? What does success look like for your program? And then figure out your metrics to measure progress. So within 1 year, you know, 50% of our graduates are going to be retained within their positions. Things like that, and we go into way more detail in the guide, but I was like, let me make the presentation pretty. So we got some new graphics in, so I was like, let's use the graphics for the presentation. I got excited. So yeah, step 1 is setting the foundation for your program. Section 2 goes into building partnerships, which I don't need to lecture you all on. You all know how important partnerships are and why partnerships matter. Here are a few examples of partners that would all be engaged in what the Department of Labor terms a sector partnership. Sector partnerships are required for apprenticeship and pre-apprenticeship programs. So they're a really essential part of making sure that you have buy-in from all of the relevant folks and can tailor your career pathway to the needs of your industry. And so oftentimes, I think in our field, we have the nonprofits who are saying, we just want to provide, you know, the public opportunities to become stewards and connect with trees where they live. And then the companies are saying, but can you get me a qualified person in now? And so we're saying different, we're really saying the same thing. We all want the same thing, but we're speaking a different language and trying to get there. And so that's why it's really important to get a sector partnership together. I don't think we have funding to do now actually help steward a sector partnership in Baltimore. I'm really excited about it. I know that there were some folks in Baltimore on the line here. And so we'll be working with the Baltimore Tree Trust to get them up to the pre-apprenticeship standard in the coming year. Hopefully it may take the whole year, but hopefully we'll be able to get that going and then build the sector partnership around it as well. All right, so after you set the foundation and you partner, I wanted to highlight workforce boards as important partners. They're the people who you apply for grants from. Every state is awarded funds through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Your state decides which industries are priority to fund. Your state workforce boards or workforce council, they have different names sometimes. And then representatives on that board, on that council, can include employers. So that's where we want our private sector and maybe large public sector employers, but for the most part, it's usually the private sector, to serve. If you are serving on a workforce board, then you can say, hey, I heard about this demand in urban forestry. Maybe we should fund them and fund their pre-apprenticeship programs. That's how that works. So state workforce boards are our key partners. Okay. Awesome. The next thing you'll need are some data sets, right, to build your program up. So the data sets you'll probably get, I split them up into realistic data sets that you might be able to acquire, and then some ones that you can reach for to potentially get. So you've got, on data sets on the workforce side. So how many people are unemployed? What does your labor pool even look like to begin with, to pull from, right? And start to source new workers from. There is, so SNAP benefits, a supplemental nutrition assistance program, has a whole separate line of funding with SNAP employment and training that links up. If folks are getting SNAP benefits, there's, I think you can get reimbursed up to half of your training costs for those individuals who are receiving SNAP benefits via SNAP employment and training reimbursement grants. So there is funding available to get that, but you need to know of the population you're serving who's on SNAP, right, to get access to that funding. What are your recidivism rates looking like? You know, Kate mentioned that she's working in Providence with folks in the reentry population, and helping them transition out of incarceration and into positions. So what do those look like? Are those going to be part of your data sets that you measure your progress on? And then reaching on the workforce piece. What are your graduation rates for your workforce? So like if you're looking to help folks get GEDs who don't have them, or if you're looking to say, all right, folks who leave our program, they're going to go in and get their associate's degree, or they're going to go to degree programs or higher learning, other certificate education programs. Evaluate your barriers to employment. We talked about those, transit, childcare being common ones. And then looking at your small business market share. I mean, a quarter of tree trimmers and pruners are self-employed. So huge opportunities for entrepreneurship in our field. And so looking at those data sets can really help. And of course, you all are more familiar probably with the urban forest data sets that are important to build a career pathways program. And sorry for the background. My parents are really ambitious about the lawn. I don't know. So the urban forest data sets that you can probably easily get access to, right, are the budget, right? What your existing tree ordinances look like, what your tree inventory looks like, so that you can prioritize, hey, we're gonna do maintenance, right? Or we're gonna do planting, or we're gonna do, the workforce that we're training is gonna do X, Y, Z work, right? To care for our urban forests. And here's what our normal budget is annually, right? To allot funding to prioritize this work. And then the reach pieces are tree equity score, which I'll get to at the very end, your urban tree canopy goals, and then your annual tree maintenance contracts. So your tree maintenance contract amounts, because folks who are working for municipalities right now, you all potentially have the ability to sway who gets what kinds of maintenance contracts. You can put clauses in there to say only contractors who are hiring locally for maintenance work are going to be awarded contracts, or can get preferential, review treatment or whatever. Lots to be had there. I know I'm getting way into the weeds here. I'll move pretty quickly through some of the rest of the slides because it's a meaty slide deck. But yeah, hope that's helpful. The next few slides are about the benefits of multicultural companies and recruitment. I'll just leave these for you to peruse a little bit later. But notably on here, 75% of white Americans have entirely white social networks. So if you're saying, okay, let's hire people of color, let's do this, let's do that. Obviously, many folks have started to make strides in this area, but you make strides by finding people who are not like you to go and do that advertisement for you. And this is kind of the shortcut way that I always suggest for folks, because yeah, white people just know a lot of other white people, and that's not a bad thing. It's just people are people, but like, if you want people who are not white, you gotta find them, and then you gotta empower them to then recruit other folks like them. And so that's important. And then there's some more fun stats on why it's important to make sure that whoever you are hiring are not feeling isolated and feeling tokenized and feeling alone, because that is a thing that no matter what your identifiers are, you're the only person like you, that can be very isolating and can lead to decimating your attention of those folks. So thinking about which populations we should target for inclusion first, I'm just going to open that up to the chat because I have a lot more slides to get through. So apologies for not being able to stop and pause as long on this exercise, but think about which population you'd want to target for inclusion. So if you're in an area where you have a big immigrant population, you're in an area where there are lots of folks who are coming out of the prison system, regardless of what that looks like, if there are huge layoffs because of COVID, right? And you're looking to now hire a bunch of folks who would have had work otherwise. think about that as you work to build your career pathway program. Making the case for hiring opportunity youth, which is great. We've been over that. Folks who are out of school and out of work in between the ages of 18 and 24. And then thinking about, sorry, this is a lot of slides, I know. I'm like now needing to fly through them because I'm trying to get through to the end to get to some of the nuggets I have at the end. Thought-provoking exercise, shifting our business models to accommodate those with childcare and transportation challenges, right? Sometimes we don't even think that we can change our business models because we're like, well, tree care gets done first thing in the morning, 6:30 a.m., 6 a.m., we're out tagging trees or measuring street tree pits or doing restoration or whatever we're doing. And it's like, well, can we shift that model, that business model, to actually build in time for those who have responsibilities that, their economic circumstances don't really help them manage right now? Can we make our field more flexible? Can we make our work more flexible? I think that this is a thing that we can absolutely do, right? Thinking about accommodations and overcoming barriers is really important. And how we do that is the next step in the guide, which is we enact policies to actually protect people, right? We make commitments to diversity, equity, and inclusion, justice, accessibility, etc. We create structural supports for folks so that they can take individual action and not be in fear, right? So actually saying and instituting whistleblower protections. So if a woman complains that there's no bathroom at the job site, right, that she's not going to face retaliation for that, very important. Flexible hours are important. Employee affinity groups are important for folks who are similar. I know that at the Partners Conference this week, they have like a people of color group at the Partners Conference. I was like, what? When do we have this? This is a miracle. I've never seen this ever. This is amazing. And of course, it's like virtual now, but I'm so excited to like continue, with that in the future. It helps increase the sense of belonging, right? And we can also adopt practices, right? Collaborating with social service organizations that can provide those customized services to folks maybe in the reentry population or who are on SNAP. Equipping participants with gear, supplies. I know that was just in the middle of writing a grant proposal with Tree Pittsburgh in mind. And one of the key line items was gear for potential crew members. It sounds very basic, but it's really, really important and can be the difference between someone showing up for work unprepared or showing up for work and saying, we're going to make sure that you're prepared. And getting that buy-in from your employer and from the employee, it's really important. All right, and finally, of course, you got to execute. And get the work done. And so we funded, as Kate mentioned, 6 pilot projects between 2019 and 2020 in Minneapolis, Milwaukee, Chicago, Detroit, Providence, and Syracuse. With these partners, and we were able to move folks up on the capacity scale in each of those cities. This is just 4 of the 6, and so using the guide and the steps that we talked about. And so if you want more, it's on Vibrant Cities Lab. That's where the Career Pathways Action Guide looks like. And so I'd want to make sure that you all are thinking about what success looks like for you in this realm, in this arena, and I would really heavily emphasize, especially for this group of folks who are largely nonprofit and public sector on the line, mostly, is to consider what the private sector would think of as success, and not just what we think of as success being success. Getting to the end of the grant, not success. Getting people actually employed, success, right? Okay. Next steps. So with on the horizon that you have to look out for from us in the next year or so is actually developing a standard national pre-apprenticeship or before-street pre-apprenticeship curriculum. So that'll be in the works. We're hoping to publish that in the summer of 2021. So keep an eye out for that. We will also be working to replicate success at the local level around sector partnerships, because again, it's kind of a key piece of infrastructure to be able to get access to all those other WIOA funds and the funds from your state workforce boards. And so our ideal is to create, a career pathway where folks can easily move from community engagement through pre-apprenticeship to academia or right to industry, and in the form of apprenticeship or direct hire as like, just starting a job. So if you want to learn more about this stuff, you can check out, again, Vibrant Cities Lab. There are 5 additional equity case studies up there, a few that embody the workforce development angle approach to achieving tree equity. And so the links are all in there. You'll get them afterward. And then very last, but not least at all, yesterday, American Forest launched the Tree Equity Score. So that just came out hot off the press. Okay, it's not quite exclusive, it's inclusive. Inclusivity is the name of the game here. But this tool uses existing tree canopy cover, population density, income, employment, race, age, and surface temperature, among other factors, to calculate what the tree equity score is by census block. And so figuring out, okay, how much plantable space is there? Is it all planted up? Who are the people being affected, right? Who are the people most susceptible, right, to high heat and other kinds of climate exacerbated stressors that we need to be prioritizing. So it's basically a prioritization tool that is free and available at treeequityscore.org. We're hoping to extend, we launched it in a few different cities, and we also launched a more intense Tree Equity Score Analyzer version of this for Rhode Island statewide, but we hope to actually expand it to, I think, 480 jurisdictions, municipalities, and tribal lands, and many other unincorporated, incorporated areas by 2022. So we'll be working on the expansion of all of that over the coming next year and some change. And so, yeah, you can get access to Tree Equity Score Analyzer by going to the Tree Equity Score site and clicking on the Tree Equity Score Analyzer. And it'll prompt you for your name and email, but that's all. And you'll be able to get access to it and draw your own parcels to look at the score. And there's some more factors that are taken into consideration with the analyzer than the regular score. So we hope that's helpful in helping you set the stage for building tree equity near you. One of the other important pieces about the analyzer is that it's basically a tool to help with, if you want to model out policy interventions or practice interventions. So saying, okay, hospitalizations or carbon sequestration, flood risk on different ownership parcels. What do those things look like if we change our urban forest management practices and policies? That's why we did the deep dive version of this. So yeah, okay, that was a lot to get through, you guys. I talked so much. I am always around for questions, okay? But I want to leave my email up a little bit in case folks want to email me after this wraps. But I know we have just a couple minutes left for questions. So thank you all for bearing through as I barreled through the rest of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Sarah. That was amazing. I'm so excited to look at that Vibrant Cities Lab thing and all of these publications that you mentioned in here. And that the tool that came out yesterday is going to be super useful. It's very exciting. So yeah, open it up for any questions. There's been a lot going on in the chat, some great discussion. So I'll be sure to save the chat and send it along with the recording afterwards. But any questions for Sarah?
Sarah, I just wanted to thank you again for all your work. So excited to be growing in this direction at our organization with our Teen Urban Tree Corps program. We also created, with help from a PhD student last year, or actually it wasn't last year, time is irrelevant, at BU through the program that Evan runs, Urban, our own tree equity map for Boston. And I'm going to drop that in the link so people can look at it. But I'm also wondering if, because we have the data, if it's really an easy translation into what you've already created. And I don't know if you're the right person to talk to about that, but it'd be exciting to get we have it ready to go. It looks like it's the same metrics we've used.
Yeah, it's probably going to be our GIS team. It's exciting though that you are working on that stuff. Yeah, please follow up with me. We can connect offline.
Okay.
So I have some questions in the chat coming through. I'm just like getting caught up on it. If tree care workers have a union, tree care workers do not have a union. Sometimes tree care workers can be protected by other unions. There's a whole there's no specific tree care worker union, but there are other industry unions and like trade unions that can include tree care unions, often utilities. There's a lot of utility unions that exist in California and in Michigan. So.
A couple questions at the bottom of the chat were, does the new tool work only for Rhode Island and the DC area? And how will that data be managed and updated over time?
That's a great question. I'm not sure that it works for DC yet. I know it works for Rhode Island, and I know it works for San Francisco, and I know it works for, I think, someplace in Arizona. I think maybe Phoenix. But outside of that, I think we're going to be working on it for all the rest of the major cities through the rest of 2020 through 2022. But it will have more capabilities. It'll have like basic capabilities for everywhere. But the analyzer, the deep dive tool, yes, will only work for Rhode Island for right now. And then until we get additional funding to be able to flesh that out in other places, because that one is more intensive. But I think the basic tool is supposed to work for everybody soon. This is not a satisfying answer, but I can get back to you with a better one. Though. Thank you, Erica, for the question. It's a great question. Okay, another question. How will data be managed and updated over time? I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question. I know that we have support to get it all the way shaped up and squared away by the 2022 date, but I can also get back to you about that as well.
I wonder, like, I mean, I'm not a data science person, but, you know, I'm thinking about how Johns Hopkins is tracking the COVID virus, and I guess they're sort of feeding in all these data streams from different places into some sort of very clever GIS. I don't know. I'm just wondering if that capability is there, sort of once you link to the data sets that different municipalities are maintaining. But I don't know. I have no idea how much coordination would be involved in that. So I was just kind of thinking along those lines, though, because that would be so cool if the data were always there, right?
Yeah, one of the really awesome pieces of feedback we got yesterday from the urban program managers, both state and national, were that this would be great to roll into the urban forest inventory analysis, the urban FIA data. And I was thinking, oh, that would be killer. That would be killer, because then we could all use kind of one uniform way to report our data and build in the equity metrics, right, that this tool allows for into it. So yeah, fantastic. Thanks for joining, Danielle.
Notice we're getting close to 11. unfortunately, we have to wrap this up. Maybe we have time for one quick question or final thought.
Hi, my name is Lee Scott Lord. I'm new here. I'm a new hire for the Fairmount Park Conservancy as the tree field coordinator. And I am new to this field of tree tending. And I'm also a person of color. I don't know if you can see my tag. But I was thinking, and I know you may have mentioned this at the beginning, but I may have missed a little bit of it. Just to add in, like when thinking about like the diversifying the field, something that's really important to me as I am a new part of this is incorporating culture and not just thinking from a place of like deficit, which is important, like bridging the gap for equity, but culture and reclaiming ownership to the land and the trees and our history with trees, especially because it's a part of a hurdle, a mental hurdle can be like the racial terrorism we have experienced in relationship with trees. So like bringing our historical caretaking of the land into that process as a reclaiming of our right to be a part of the land and caretaking of it is something really important to me, and that really energizes me to want to be a part of this field. And bring more of my community into the field. So I guess it was more of a comment than a question. But I just want to say thank you for all of this information. And I really enjoyed the presentation.
Thanks, Lee. Welcome. Welcome. Don't leave. We need you. And you're in the Philly area, so I'll try and figure out how I can connect with you. That's great. Yeah, we definitely need to not lose the narratives, right? The historic cultural narratives that are critical to us sustaining our field, sustaining our livelihood, but also sustaining community as we grow the field intentionally and inclusively. So yeah, please feel free to reach out again. Hopefully everybody will get my slides, and so reach out with questions, comments, concerns, feedback, and being like, tell me if it's horrible. You know, we exist to serve you all and to serve the field and to advance our work. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. What a great note to end it on. Really appreciate it, Sarah. We meet in a month, December 16. We'll be hearing from Plant 5 for Life from Christine. Hope you can join us. And as always, feel free to get in contact with Kinsey and myself so we can improve our programming too. Thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, everybody. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye.